Well, last May, the Obama administration announced a new rule requiring every public school in the country to let transgender students use whichever bathroom or locker room match their preferred gender identity.
The Obama administration has sent out a directive to every public school in the country to allow transgender students to use the bathrooms that match their gender identity.
Pushing back, including Texas.
When you pass these ordinances and these rules, particularly in the adult sector, it says any person, any man who feels like he's a transgender, he feels like he's a woman, can go in. They don't have to be dressed like a woman. They can be dressed like an ordinary man.
Hey, this will come as no surprise. But you know who reversed directives that let transgender public school students use the bathroom of the gender they identify with, which is also a big reversal of a campaign promise made by you-know-who.
For an issue that's been occurring in the last few years, and still here today in the year 2017, the fight of this issue and people's rights to choose which bathroom is used for their identified gender has reached all over the United States, even in a major factor in the LGBTQ community, as well as a side factor of the rising rate of bullying in schools for transgender children and even adults in their own workspaces.
What's your name?
Alejandra.
My name is Alejandro.
Do you know the issue between transgender bathroom rights?
Yeah.
No, I do not.
Do you know anyone that is affected by this in any way?
Well, isn't everyone?
I mean, like anyone that's transgender.
No, I don't.
Technically know anyone that's gay, but I feel that it does affect them in a certain way, that it could hurt them emotionally and it could scar them.
How do you feel towards the LGBT community?
I think that they're human and they shouldn't be identified as anybody. Like they're themselves. They're human. That's all it really is.
Even transgenders?
Yeah, everybody is. You bleed the same, you cry the same, everyone's the same.
I feel like they should have more rights to themselves, because then I feel that other people, like how they say, they have issues between gays and they got problems. I don't know why they have problems. They're human beings just like us. Everyone's the same, so gays shouldn't be treated differently just because they're gay.
So you feel that even if they're transgender, they should have equality, yes?
Yeah, they should. Every person should have equality.
Here we have the political party Stonewall Democrats. The word Stonewall refers to the Stonewall Riots of 1969, a pivotal event in the struggle for equal rights for LGBT people. And here on the Stonewall website, you can read about current LGBT issues.
Oh my God, a trans woman in New York, I gotta take a pee. Anyway, oh my God, the Trump International Hotel. I love this. Okay, last week, Donald Trump said I could take a pee anywhere in a Trump facility, so I am gonna go take a pee in the ladies' room.
Putting Trump to the test, today Caitlyn Jenner stepped into the murky world of US election politics when she posted this video on Facebook.
And not anymore. W.
It all started last week when Republican frontrunner Donald Trump was asked about so-called bathroom bills, like the one passed in North Carolina, which forces transgender people to use only bathrooms that correspond to the sex on their birth certificate. Ted Cruz came out in support of the bill, but Trump said in an interview that he wouldn't care if Jenner used the women's bathrooms at his properties.
Oh, God, okay. Thank you, Donald. I really appreciate it. And by the way, Ted, nobody got molested.
Despite the message in the video, Jenner, who is a Republican herself, says she hasn't endorsed any candidate for president.
I think it's important when we have conversations with and about transgender people that we do not reduce us to body parts. We are more than the sum of our parts, and it's so deeply objectifying and dehumanizing to talk about trans people and reduce us to body parts. That is really disturbing, and we need to look at the evidence. We need to look at all the hundreds of localities all over the country that have public accommodations protections, and that's really what we're talking about for trans people. And everything that he's claiming happens actually doesn't happen. Instead, trans people feel as if they have a right to exist in society. My transition was about me existing in public space and thriving in society, and because I was able to do that, I've been able to thrive. That's all we want.
A tweet from the state legislator of Virginia, Emily Gorjensky, reads, "Sure, now we want to get rid of state lines, but not when it comes to trans kids peeing in proper bathrooms." A tweet from CNN's Christopher Kumo reads, "I have 2 young daughters. I have the same instinct to protect. Setting the basis for equality doesn't make you pro-predator." Later, he tweets about teaching tolerance to overprotective and intolerant parents. Kumo later deleted these tweets due to negative feedback he was receiving.
What bathroom do you use?
I use the female restrooms because I am female.
I think it's a sick thing, basically.
This is the kind of prejudice transgender teen Jazz Jennings says she's been fighting most of her life.
It's just a bathroom, and it's not that important. We should just get over it, not create problems that don't exist, and move on.
Media is a huge part of change. Without media, change is going to take forever.
10 years ago, when Jazz was in kindergarten, her school refused to let her use the girls' restroom.
One day in 2nd grade, I decided to sneak into the girls' bathroom, and I got in trouble by the librarian, and it was super devastating because that was the first time I realized that I was being treated differently because of the fact that I was transgender.
The use of restrooms by transgender people.
Media does not only affect the younger generation, but it also affects the older generation.
Day of Remembrance, for me, it's always the most emotional moment in my life. It is the ultimate reminder how lucky I am to be alive, to be sitting here having this conversation where a lot of people all over the world are being killed or were killed because of who they are, because of the simple fact that we are ignorant of the understanding of what it means to be trans and human. In my case, as a transgender woman, I was assigned boy at birth. I knew at such a young age that I'm a girl, I'm a woman. When I was 15 years old, in the Philippines, I started joining beauty pageants. I was discovered by a transgender woman. And from 15 to 17 years old, that was my job. I owe so much to the transgender community for allowing me to be in tune about who I am at such a young age. So it's a big gift for them about the work that I'm doing with Gender Proud, and for me to share my story. So they know that their stories matter, their voice matters, and their lives matter. I'm very inspired and grateful for being able to launch Gender Proud and advocating for this thing called gender recognition law. What that means is a law that allows trans people and gender non-conforming people like intersex people to change name and gender marker on legal documents without being forced to go through surgeries. It comes back to the very basic component of being acknowledged, feeling dignified when you wake up in the morning. Your legal documents match who you truly are. Transgender Day of Remembrance, for me, is an important reminder why this work needs to happen fast. It's a reminder why this work needs to include not just transgender people, but allies, to find authentic allies to understand that being trans is just part of the human diversity of expression, and we need to have laws that supports that. So in the next 10 years, hopefully all over the world, there's gender recognition law that allows people to be who they are from the simple fact of just self-identification.
Around the turn of the century, There were a lot of us around the country who strongly felt that there needed to be a transgender voice in Washington, D.C. When we started NCTE, we didn't have a paid staff. We didn't even have an office. What we did have was a vision that we could advocate for transgender people. We often talked about the ick factor. This is something that folks felt about trans people. There were times that the person would flinch when we shook hands with them, or slide away if you sat down on the same sofa as they did. And you know what? 15 years later, we're in meetings in the West Wing. We're creating a voice for transgender people in Washington, D.C. in federal policy. The NCT staff is remarkable. They are mission-driven, very smart. There are a lot of funny people on staff. Not everybody's funny. Jay, for instance, is really not funny.
I think a lot of the fear that many members of the general public have of trans people is just because it's unknown.
The most important work that's still being done is getting people to understand we're just folks. And that's what takes away the ick factor. Our job is about education. We educate policymakers and we educate the public. When a high school principal suddenly has a trans student and wants to figure out how to do it right, we've created a list of keywords that make sure they get taken to the right place to get the right information. When I was a little kid coming out to my parents, there was no internet. If there had been access to information like there is now, if my parents could have Googled and been taken to transequality.org to learn about transgender people, to learn about who their kid was and what their kid needed, my life would have benefited tremendously. Transgender people still face really remarkable hurdles in society. We've seen the murder rate of trans people, particularly trans women of color, go way up over the last couple of years. We have an unemployment rate that's at least twice as high as the general population. But I am so optimistic. I have so much clarity that we will get there. And no matter what happens for the rest of my life, I got to be part of this to help this community and these people live better lives. And it's something I get to be real proud of.
I have a message for the trans kids of America. You're winning. I know it doesn't feel like it today or every day, but you're winning. Very soon we will win full freedom nationwide, and it's going to be with bipartisan support. You can help by checking out the National Center for Transgender Equality and letting Washington hear you loud and clear. Now I have a message for the bullies. You're sick. And because you're weak, you pick on kids, you pick on women, or anyone else you think is vulnerable. Apparently, even becoming the Attorney General isn't enough to cure some people of their insecurities. As proof, the Supreme Court will soon hear a very important Title IX case, thanks to the courage of a very brave young man, Gavin Grimm. Mr. President, we'll see you in court. Finally, I have a message for President Trump from, well, one Republican to another. This is a disaster, and you can still fix it. You made a promise to protect the LGBTQ community. Call me.